Thrall. From slave to warchief. When we think of the Horde, one name stands above the rest. The green-skinned, muscular savior who pulled his people from the mud and gave them a future. A gladiator, a shaman, a liberator, and a warchief. His story is both the tragic tale of a single orc and the absolute foundation of the modern Horde in the Warcraft universe. His original name is not Thrall, of course. He does not use the name given by his parents at birth for specific reasons, as we will find out later in his story. Let's travel back to the era before World of Warcraft, to a time of internment camps, slavery, and the rebirth of a broken race. Thrall's tragedy began before he could even walk. He was born with the name Goel, the son of Durotan and Draka, the noble chieftains of the Frostwolf clan. Because his parents opposed the demonic corruption of the Orcish race by Gul'dan, they were assassinated in the snowy wilderness of Alterac Mountains. The assassins left the infant Goel to die in the freezing cold alongside his parents' corpses. He was found by Idila's Blackmoor, a cruel and ambitious human commander who ran the Durnhold Keep internment camp. Blackmoor saw a weapon in the baby and saved him for his own schemes. He stripped the baby of his Orcish heritage and named him Thrall, which literally translates to slave in the human tongue. Blackmoor raised Thrall purely to be a gladiator, a spectacle for his men, and a pawn in his grand scheme to eventually take over the Alliance with a private army of orcs. Thrall grew up in cold stone dungeons, beaten daily, and forced to fight in bloody arenas where he learned brutal combat tactics, human strategy, and the common tongue. Interestingly, even after winning his freedom and becoming warchief, Thrall chose to keep this degrading name. He wore it not as an insult, but as a badge of honor and a constant reminder to himself and his people. The orcs would never be slaves again. Here is an incredible piece of lore. During these dark arena days, a young Prince Arthas Menethil actually visited Durnhold Keep. The future Lich King stood in the stands and watched the young, green-skinned gladiator fight below. It was a chilling, brief encounter between Azeroth's future greatest savior and its greatest threat, even though they did not come face to face or talk, just existing in the same place for a moment. Despite the daily torture and humiliation, Thrall did not grow up as a mindless beast. This was largely thanks to a human girl named Taretha Foxton. Taretha was the daughter of Blackmoor's secretary, and she became a secret foster sister to Thrall. Behind closed doors, she was also a victim of Blackmoor's cruelty, forced to become his mistress to protect her family. Their bond is one of the most touching stories in Warcraft lore, as they were both prisoners of the same tyrant. Taretha showed Thrall that not all humans were monsters. She secretly taught him how to read, snuck books into his cell, and wrote him hidden letters. By the way, if you want to experience the heartbreaking details of his gladiator years and his bond with Taretha, I highly recommend reading Christie Golden's novel, Warcraft, Lord of the Clans. It is an absolute masterpiece. Through Taretha, Thrall learned about history, honor, and the world outside his cage. When Thrall finally decided he could no longer live as a prisoner, it was Taretha who helped him escape. She created a diversion, supplied him with provisions, and watched him vanish into the wilderness. Her kindness planted a seed of diplomacy in Thrall that would eventually shape the entire future of the Horde. After his escape, Thrall ventured into the wild to find his people. His journey first led him to Gromash Hellscream and the undefeated Warsong clan, who taught him what it truly meant to be a proud orc. But his most life-changing encounter was finding the exiled Frostwolf clan, his true family, hidden in the snowy peaks of the Alterac Mountains. There, he met the blind elder Drektha, who revealed Thrall's true heritage as the son of Durotan. Drektha gave him something far more important than his family name. He introduced him to the elements, For years, the orcs had lost their connection to nature, relying solely on brute strength or dark warlock magic that cursed their blood. Thrall, however, listened to the spirits of earth, wind, fire, and water. He was accepted by them, becoming the first new orc shaman in years. He was both a warrior and a spirit guide now. Thrall's growing power and vision caught the attention of a mysterious hermit living with the Frostwolves. This stranger turned out to be none other than Orgrim Doomhammer, the legendary former Warchief of the Horde who had been living in hiding. To test the young orc, Doomhammer provoked Thrall by insulting his dead father and his very own close friend Durotan. Furious, Thrall challenged the stranger to a duel and surprisingly overpowered the veteran warrior. Laughing, Doomhammer revealed his true identity. Impressed by Thrall's spirit and combat prowess, Doomhammer named him his second-in-command, and together they began a massive campaign to liberate the orc internment camps across Lordaeron. The liberation was a success, but it came at a heavy cost. During the battle to free one of the final camps, Orgrim Doomhammer was mortally wounded. With his dying breath, the legendary orc passed his iconic black plate armor and his mythical weapon, the Doomhammer, to Thrall. At that moment, the slave from Durnhold Keep officially became the new Warchief of the Horde. Before leaving Lordaeron, Thrall had one final score to settle: the destruction of Durnhold Keep. He laid siege to the fortress where he was once a slave. In a desperate and cruel attempt to break Thrall's spirit, Blackmore threw the severed head of Taretha Foxton over the castle walls. Instead of breaking him, this horrific act unleashed the full, terrifying wrath of the shaman. The earth itself shattered under Thrall's grief and rage, completely destroying Durnhold Keep and burying Blackmore in the rubble. His past was finally dealt with, and he could move on with his destiny now. Soon after, following the warnings of a mysterious prophet, Medivh, he would lead his people across the Great Sea to Kalimdor, founding the nation of Durota and the great city of Orgrimmar. The journey to Kalimdor was tumultuous. A massive storm separated the Horde's fleet, washing them ashore on a place known as the Darkspear Isles. First thing Thrall had on his mind was diplomacy, not conquest. To survive in this unforgiving lands, the orcs could not stand alone. First, he encountered the Darkspear Trolls, led by the wise Sunjin. The trolls were being hunted by murlocs and human forces. Thrall intervened, saving the Darkspear from annihilation. Though Sunjin fell in battle, with his dying breath, he urged his people, and his son, Vol'jin, to follow Thrall. Soon after landing at a coast of Kalimdor, Thrall met Cairn Bloodhoof, the chieftain of the Tauren, who were being driven to extinction by the Centaurs. Thrall's forces helped protect the Tauren, forging a bond of brotherhood that would become the very backbone of the Horde. The orcs, trolls, and Tauren united together were now an unbreakable family of outcasts. While Thrall was busy building alliances, his oldest friend, Gromash Hellscream, who made the journey with him from Eastern Kingdoms, made a terrible mistake. Sent to harvest lumber in the forests of Ashen Vale, Grom's clan clashed with the Night Elves and their demigod, Cenarius. Desperate for victory, Grom drank the blood of the demon lord Manaroth, the very curse that had corrupted the orcs in the first place. Grom turned red-skinned from green with further use of demon blood, and with it, he slew Cenarius. Thrall was devastated when he found his brother in arms corrupted once again. Working alongside Jaina Proudmoore, another alliance forged through Medivh's guidance, Thrall managed to capture and cleanse Grom. Together, the two orcs ventured into a demonic crater to confront Manaroth himself. In one of the most legendary cinematic moments in Warcraft history, Thrall was knocked aside by the demon. It was Grom who delivered the killing blow, sacrificing his own life to shatter Manaroth's weapon and end the blood curse on the orcish race forever. Grom died a hero, and Thrall was left to lead a truly free people. I still watch this cinematic sometimes to this day, and it always brings tears to my eyes. With the demons defeated and the Battle of Mount Hyjal won, Thrall finally claimed a permanent home for his people. He named the harsh, red-rocked region Durota, in honor of his murdered father, Durotan. Deep within a naturally fortified canyon, he established a massive capital city and named it Orgrimmar, to honor the Warchief who passed the mantle to him, Orgrim Doomhammer. Under Thrall's rule, the Horde experienced a golden age. He didn't seek war with the Alliance, instead he sought stability. He sat on his throne in the Valley of Wisdom, surrounded by the wise Cairn who stood in Thunder Bluff and the cunning Vol'jin near him, dealing with internal politics, rogue warlocks, and external threats. 4 years, Thrall was the unshakable pillar holding the Horde together. From venturing back into their old, shattered world, now called Outland, to face Illidan, to fighting the Lich King in the frozen wastes of Northrend. Everything shattered with the arrival of the Cataclysm. Deathwing the Destroyer tore the world apart, and the elements of Azeroth went into complete chaos. Thrall, realizing that his duties as a shaman were now more important than his duties as a warchief, made the most controversial decision of his life. He stepped down from the throne to heal the planet, becoming the World Shaman. Because the Cataclysm made Azeroth's elements dangerously chaotic, Thrall traveled to Outland for guidance. There he met his life companion, Agra, who taught him to listen to the elements rather than command them, and they later had a son named Durok. To take his place, he appointed Garrosh Hellscream, the hot-headed son of Grommash. Thrall believed Garrosh could be the strong hero the Orcs needed, even though Garrosh did not want the mantle, saying he was not suitable. Thrall was deeply, tragically wrong. Garrosh's reign twisted the Horde into a warmongering, tyrannical empire. He alienated the other races, bombed the city of Theramore, and even orchestrated the assassination of Cairn Bloodhoof, though unknowingly. Adventurers had to step in to dethrone him inside the siege of Orgrimmar Raid. Thrall's legacy was dragged through the mud by the very orc he placed in power, but Garrosh himself warned him in the first place. The conflict with Garrosh culminated in the Warlords of Draenor expansion. On the grassy plains of Nagrand, Draenor, the two confronted each other in a Mak'gora, a sacred duel to the death. Garrosh blamed Thrall for everything, shouting that Thrall made him war chief and abandoned him. He was not wrong. Thrall, burdened by guilt and anger, broke the sacred rules of the physical duel. He used his shamanistic powers, summoning powers of stone and lightning to kill Garrosh. He won, but he lost everything. Because he used the elements out of anger to himself, the spirits abandoned him. The legendary Doomhammer became heavy in his hands. Thrall fell into a deep depression, losing his powers and going into exile. Shaman adventurers picked up Doomhammer as an artifact in the Legion expansion. Since then, the lore has not been entirely kind to him. During the battle for Azeroth, and especially the Big Bad Shadowlands expansion, Thrall was dragged back into cosmic conflicts that felt incredibly out of place for his character. Today, the mantle of Warchief is gone, replaced by a Horde council. Thrall sits on that council, older, tired, stripped of his godly shaman powers, serving as a wise but exhausted father figure to a nation that has seen too much war. I'm getting the feeling he is not going to survive the World Soul Saga expansion trilogy. It is heartbreaking to see what the recent expansions have done to his narrative. The storytelling in Shadowlands was, to put it mildly, a complete disaster, turning grounded, legendary characters into confused tourists in the afterlife. What did Thrall do to deserve to be a character in a cosmic melodrama? Thrall's story peaked the moment he dropped the lightning on Garrosh in Nagrand. That should have been his ultimate, tragic retirement and his final story. Despite the messy writing of the modern expansions, when I look at Thrall sitting in Orgrimmar today, I see the slave from Durnhold Keep who built an empire from the dirt, broke the blood curse, and gave outcasts a place to call home.